So I have played Atlas quite a bit for how long the game has been out. For reference, I played probably about a dozen hours in the Itch.io demo, which I will link in the description because I don't know, some people don't understand how to navigate Itch, which is fair. It's a pretty niche site. Anyway, on Steam, I have almost 50 hours because there was the Patreon demo before it was in early access. And I got three characters maxed out. No, I don't think I maxed them out, but I did all the quests. And then once the early access came out, I maxed out three more characters, one of each class. Um, and now I want to do another character, max it out to get, or to like show off the content in this game because I just like this game. I want to make more content on it. Um, so yeah, I have about 50 hours. So it's very much an RPG, obviously. I'm not really sure what class I want to go with. I think I want to go with Mystic, in which case a Kobold would probably be best. But I've also already played Cheng, Kobold, and Poon. So I kind of want... Is this 100% magic crit as well? I think I'm going to go with Birtle, because I haven't played Birtle yet. I do really like the look of the imps, but I don't know. Birtle is probably more YouTube friendly at least. So the sliders here are kind of confusing. As far as I can tell, it's saturation here, brightness here, and contrast here. Um, that took me a while to figure out when trying to like make my character look good at first. I think I'm gonna go with Mystic. Mystic is probably my favorite class to play. Oh, I forgot I can change my dye. So one thing that I really like about this game that I really want to highlight is the body types of the characters, and I think this race is probably the worst one to show it off. So I'll switch over to a different character in a moment. I think I'm just gonna go with red there. It probably works best. Um, anyway, the body types of the characters are one thing that I like love about this game because they are. It's not that the body type is necessarily underrepresented. It's just that these characters are like so obviously. The cat is trying to get my food bowl from breakfast. Um, it's but the characters in this game are so obviously meant to be like attractive, right? And that's a little bit more obvious once we come up to these other characters. Like again, I don't think that Bertle represents us as much as the other races. Um, but if we come out and look at like, what if we look at like my Chang, right? Or any of these characters, they're obviously meant to be attractive, but they also are still like they have this body type, which is my real life body type. um, which is just incredibly affirming to have a video game character who seems to be intentionally designed to be attractive have your body type. And in that context, I feel like this body type is underrepresented. Anyway, chubby girls are great, including myself, I guess. Normally, my self esteem isn't all that great, but this game definitely helps boost that a little bit. So, to start off, we actually have to um, accept this quest here and then walk around to the different like areas here. So there's the gateway, there's the world portal in there, there's the shop over here, and then the barracks, all the way down back that way. I feel like the enchantress should also be included in this now that that's been added, but the quest hasn't been updated. In the demo, the enchantress isn't there, and this quest is exactly the same. But now that it is here, I feel like that should be added. The certain weapons, not either of the Mystic's weapons, but certain weapons will actually let us like do jump attacks and stuff. Well, okay, the bell has a jump attack, which is the Mystic's other weapon, but the well here I guess I can just buy like guitars or something. So all these weapons here, I'm gonna buy the wooden bell. I don't think it's great, but it's better than nothing probably. The bandit uses the bow and the guitars. I'm actually going to buy guitars so I can show what I mean. The warrior uses swords, hammers, and pole arms. And then the mystic uses scepters and bells. And then all three classes can use shields, but depending how useful they actually are kind of depends on the class. Anyway, I do not have the levels to use the wooden bell yet, so that's the perfect opportunity to equip this. And show what is probably the most effective way to move in the game. It doesn't feel intentional. Blocking, so normally when you land, you'll do like a little animation there and you can't move during that. But if you block, it will cancel that or if you block in the air, it'll cancel the animation. Anyway, Bandit is probably my most played class, but I think I do prefer Mystic now. I definitely used to prefer Bandit, but I don't know. Bandit is a lot more focused on movement and switching between weapons and skills. Mystic is almost entirely focused on skills, and then the Warrior is like barely uses skills at all. I mean, you can use certain skills, especially like the one where you throw your weapon, if you know what I'm talking about. But I don't know. Largely, Mystic focuses a lot more on skills than the Warrior, obviously, right? There's not really much of a reason for me to kill these wisps, since we're going to be going into a dungeon in a moment, which is just absolutely full of wisps. But I also want to do the slime quest before entering the dungeon, which I have to wait till daytime for, and so killing these wisps is kind of the only thing I can do. But having a couple extra levels before going into the catacombs isn't necessarily a bad thing. Mystic is probably the least mobile of all three classes, which is kind of a negative, but I think the combat itself is a lot more fun with the Mystic, which is a bulk of the game. Fighter's fine, but Fighter is probably my least favorite class. All three classes are really good, and you can definitely, get through the game with all three, but I think Bandit and Mystic are just more fun than the Fighter, where the combat is largely just holding the attack button. Obviously, it changes a little bit, and you can use skills, but largely, I am going to put pretty much all my points into mind for a while. I'll get a little bit of health at some point, but for now, this amount of health is fine. At least for me, since I've played this game so much, it might be a little bit harder for, a new player to do that. Oh my god, I got the Slime Crest armor immediately. That's kind of crazy, actually. This is obviously better than the starting set. The starting set is, I don't think it has any effects at all and doesn't have any defense at all, so obviously this is immediately just going to be better. The highest level in the game right now is unfortunately only 25, and the amount of content isn't insane. I don't know if I'm going to be going through all the content in this video. Probably not all of it, but at least a good portion of it. And then, once the next update comes out, I'll do another one of these just covering the whole game. I don't know. There might be two parts to this, like this update specifically, because this update, obviously, I have to show off everything that exists, that has began existing since the game began existing in the first place. So obviously there's going to be a lot more content to go through in this one, on top of just explaining the basics of the game and everything. So now that I have completed the Ridding Slimes quest, I'm actually going to go turn it in real quick, and then we can get into the dungeon. We can't actually complete Night Spirits yet because Greater Wisps don't spawn outside of the dungeon. There is another area that they spawn in, and I think that area gets unlocked at level 5, but it might also not get unlocked until we complete the Catacombs. I don't actually remember, so I'm just going to go to the Catacombs. It's obviously the next, intended section, so I guess I should probably start putting at least a few points into Vitality. So yeah, Recovery, I can't level up right now, so I'm just going to pour that into Inner Focus. And again, Recovery, especially right now, is the only way we can heal without consumables. And I'm not going to spend much of my money on consumables right now. Actually, I do have a bunch of items that I should sell. Your inventory space is highly limited. The wood bell isn't good, but I really like the moveset of the bells, so for now I am gonna actually keep it. I'm also gonna keep the ghost dust that I have here, because that'll be useful for a quest that we can actually get from Sally right now. We need a bunch of ghost dust and a bunch of Geist collars, which we'll get in a moment. So this is a waypoint that we can actually teleport to from the portal in the middle of the Sanctum, which is like the hub area. Anyway, if it would actually let me do this. Obviously the dungeon is levels 1 to 6, and I'm a little bit over-leveled for that because I did the slime quest first. But when you're this early in the game, every little bit helps, so I do actually recommend doing the Ridding Slimes quest first. I also recommend breaking pots and stuff, because they can drop healing consumables, they drop currency, they can drop, certain kinds of loot. Usually only wood loot. I think, well, for later dungeons, they can drop higher tier loot. I think in the highest tier Catacombs dungeon, they can drop iron loot, if I remember correctly. And then they can drop the next tier of loot once we get to the next dungeon, which is one of the last things in the game right now, actually. Unfortunately, there are only 2 dungeons, but we'll get there in a while. Well, I don't know. It kind of depends on how you define a dungeon. Okay, so this game does have parrying. You'll understand what I mean later about the dungeon thing. The game has parrying. I highly recommend understanding it. The timing is extremely generous. Um, like it's not hard to time the parries, mostly because this game can also be played co-op online, and the developer didn't want ping to heavily affect how difficult parries were, and as such, parries are actually pretty easy. So that status effect I just got, the wisp, whatever, I don't remember exactly what it does actually. I know it decreases some of your stats. I'm not sure which ones though. It might only be attacking. I don't remember. Oh, the crypt bow. That would be decent if I was doing a bandit class. Obviously, you get better ones as time goes on. I would prefer a crypt call bell, but I don't actually know if that is available this early on. I'm gonna do this platforming so I can just grab this and then flip this lever. I've gone through every dungeon layout in the game right now, so I don't know. I'm gonna be tearing through this a lot faster than most people would, but there are also mana restoring consumables. The Magi Leaf you saw me pick up was one of those, which is the lowest here. There's Magi Leaf, Magi Clove, and Magi. I don't remember what the other one is actually, but yeah, you get the point. So the combat is, I don't want to say it gets samey as you go on. It does definitely lose its luster a little bit. I still think the combat is great, and I've played it for 50 hours or whatever, and I still really, really like the combat in this game. So it's not an issue if you're just going to be doing, a playthrough or two with a couple of classes. But I don't know, the combat isn't incredibly varied. What really makes it varied is the enemy variety more than anything. I should definitely heal. And obviously the enemy variety is actually really good right now. Obviously, it's only a couple dungeons, but with all the different combinations that enemies show up in, like the combat is extremely varied. It feels, in my opinion, and is actually very, very fun. I want to see if inner focus works here. Okay, good, it does. Obviously, that's not super great for a scepter, but once I start using my bell, once I'm able to use the bell, at least. The wisp attacking animation isn't incredibly obvious. Same with the slime one. But I know the developer is actually working on a better tell for that. Um, oh, hey, just a normal Geist. These guys can drop their weapons. It's not common at all. It's actually really rare, but their weapon it looks really cool. It kind of sucks. I think you need to be actually kind of high level to use it. I might be thinking of the next tier of this guy's weapon, but anyway, I really like their weapon, but it's not good. It looks really cool, but it doesn't do very much damage, especially to similarly leveled gear that the same class can use, like especially with the other sword and the similar tier sword. And what was the other? The polearm, yeah. Which I think, if I remember correctly, is the Sinner's Bardiche, which I love Bardishes, so that was my best warrior weapon for a while. A lot of the warrior weapons look really cool. I think if you're going for style, warrior is, if you're going for like fashion style kind of thing, right? Like cool looking weapons and stuff, then warrior is probably the way to go. If you're going for flashy gameplay, then mystic is probably the way to go. And if you're looking for like specifically gameplay that will test your ability, like skill based combat, then I would definitely recommend bandit. Um, that probably sums up the classes pretty well. Ow. I think I can actually equip the bell now. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna attempt to equip the bell in the middle of combat, which probably isn't the best idea. Owie. Um, I really love the bells because they just shred through enemies and they look super awesome. But the lower level bells aren't super great. Right now, the best in slot weapon for the Mystic is the bell that you get from the hardest, or well, the last boss in the demo. Or sorry, in the early access right now. Unfortunately, most bells don't seem to be super good relative to their similarly leveled scepters. That said, bells do tear through jars instead of stopping on each individual jar, so that's cool. Once we get to the point where we can actually um, have our class, the different, or we'll actually get mastery scrolls, which will allow us to put skill points into being able to use a weapon better or whatever, which will I'll better explain once we get there, but it'll unlock like charge attacks or increase attack speed or whatever for the weapon that you have the mastery scroll for. And you can actually get any mastery scroll, which is really nice because there are weapons that aren't tied to classes, but even more so, that you can make any weapon scale with any stat, right? So say I want to use like a melee weapon as a mage, but there isn't a melee weapon available for the mages. I can actually take whatever melee weapon I want to use, um, and then assign the magic scaling onto it, so that I can actually use it and do decent damage as a mage, even if it's not technically the best for my class or whatever. We also have in the bottom right here a little hotbar that we can put consumables in on the function buttons. For now, I'm just going to put those two on since that's all I have, and there's not really any reason not to. Also, once we get to the 2 higher tier dungeons, there will be a boss here, and, we'll get to that in a moment. I'm going to come back in immediately, just so I can get enough stuff to complete the Ghostly Goods quest, just right now, so I don't have to deal with it later. Now, admittedly, this game is a little bit grindy. However, like I said, I really like the combat in this game, so I don't find it to be like a bad grindy. Geist Color, only need one more. Okay, a bunch of Geists. I think the game is taking pity on me for not having another color yet. There it is. You can actually leave the dungeon at any time you want to by using the recall ability, which by default is mapped to G, but the game doesn't actually tell you that until you get to until you start doing the next quest, which we're about to do. I probably won't level Vitality much anymore, actually. So from different classes, I actually have a skill scroll here. Actually, I don't know if I can get the skill scroll yet, so I'm not going to use it. But you can transfer equipment between different characters with the storage, which is extremely useful. I'm going to accept both of our quests right now, and I'm going to do Eiffel Terrace first, because it is technically a lower level quest. Rattlecage Rage, we could do it now, but it's just the next level of dungeons up. I don't think this guy in the barracks has any quests yet, but he usually gives you quests to defeat certain enemies or certain kinds of enemies. Voice of Zulnaruda, which I believe is his first like story quest. Okay, that's level 6. That's what I thought. And that's the boss of the second level of Catacombs. Now the enchanting stuff, I'm not going to do it yet because I don't need the damage or the anything actually at all from the enchantress, but so depending on the piece of equipment that you give her, you'll pay a different amount of money or material, and then she'll give you a random enchantment for that price. So you'll usually have to re-roll enchantments several times to get the kind of enchantment that you want. But there's off the top of my head, if I remember all of them, there is Precise, which gives you extra dexterity, basically. There is Mana Font, which increases the total amount of mana that you have as long as you have that piece of equipment equipped, which if you put it on a weapon, it will only apply to your active weapon, and if you have it on a shield, it will only apply when the shield is equipped. That goes for all equipment, or that goes for all enchantments, rather. There is Killer, which increases your strength, basically, like how Precise does your dexterity. There is Magic, which increases your mind, your magic damage, And then there is Lively, which increases your maximum health. And then there is Guardian, which increases your defense. So there are quite a few enchantments, and each of them is different to different degrees for different classes. Like Killer would be completely useless on this class, right? Or Precise would also be completely useless. But to different degrees, Magic and Mana Font and Guardian and Lively are all pretty useful for this class, depending on what specifically you want to go for. Generally, I'm just going to be leveling, or I'm only going to go for Magic. So my preferred loadout is just an entire set of gear with, oh my god, with all enchanted with magic. Excuse me, I'm trying to equip stuff, please. Eventually, once I start actually enchanting my own gear, then I'll go for magic again, but this gear is low level enough, and I'm going to be dropping it soon enough that I don't think it's worth putting the enchantment on it. Also, that weapon, I've only ever gotten this once before, and it was from gambling. I have no idea how rare it is, or if it's like new or something, but I've just genuinely never seen that until very, very recently. I want to see if the first crafting quest is available. I think it is. I want to say it's level 6, but I'm not sure. Let me check in here. Oh yeah, okay, level 7. Obviously, can't use any of this, unfortunately. I'm gonna sell that as well. Now, enchanting is incredibly expensive, so I'm actually gonna hold off on enchanting for a while. Now we have the Hunt and Hogs quest for level 7, which I'm actually gonna go do now, because the mech spear, or first of all, it's easily cheesable by pretty much every class except the warrior, but also it gives us one of the components that we need for the Making a Mech Spear quest. And then we need the Slime at Cores, which we already got a few of from the Effled Terrace quest, and we're going to get even more from the Diva Must Die quest. So now, unfortunately, we can actually only have 5 quests in our quest log. I don't think any more quests are even technically available right now. But if there were, or if we wanted to, stack up a bunch of repeatable quests that we go do all in a row or whatever, that's just not really an option, which, I mean, it's fine overall. Anyway, yeah, you can just stand up here. This is easy to do as Bandit. This is easy to do as Mystic, obviously. The only difficulty, like you could do this as Fighter if you just use like Spire or something, which is an ability that you can get from ability scrolls in the Catacombs. But otherwise, the mech spear, or sorry, the mech boars rather, are, I wouldn't say they're particularly difficult, but they're really annoying to fight because like you basically have to parry them every single time they charge. Otherwise, they're like really difficult to dodge, in my opinion. So I find them easy to parry, which is annoying to do over and over. The cat has continued screaming. I think the cat is officially done screaming. Anyway, yeah, you can cheese this as any class. I just don't really like fighting the mech boars at this level, and later we have to fight a harder version of them anyway. Like, even scaled for the level that you're supposed to be, when you fight them, I would say they're significantly more difficult than the mech boars. So it's just kind of not engaging with with something that I've already learned, and kind of becomes tedious after a while, especially since they're such a one note enemy with really not many ways to engage with them, since they only have one attack. Or well, that's not. I guess most enemies kind of have one attack, but I don't know. With these guys specifically, it's just charging over and over, so I don't feel the need to engage with them. I do recommend engaging with them the first time you play, just so you can learn their attacks and stuff. But either way, there's a lot more to Tool Valley, I think is how you pronounce it. Tool. um, there's a bunch of stuff over here. There's even another vendor that sells specific consumables. There's not really any reason to come over here since I think like 4 or 5 mech boars spawn in the other area. Actually, if I come up here, can they even... Okay, never mind. I guess some spawn up here. I don't think they can get on top of the fence though, which is really funny. Yeah, it doesn't seem like they can attack up here. It's also worth mentioning that pretty much any ability cast can be canceled by just blocking. So if you accidentally hit the healing button or whatever, just blocking will cancel it. Now to get the Slime Diva to actually spawn in the first place, we need to kill, I don't know the exact number, but it's a few Slimex in this spot specifically. And there we go. So this boss is largely pretty easy, obviously being the first boss that we actually encounter. Technically, it doesn't have to be. There are other bosses, or well, Zul Naruda specifically, we can are very able to encounter beforehand. But actually, you might actually be able to fight the Colossus if you do a ton of grinding. But that's going to be the final boss that we fight in this update. Like if you, I think you need to get to level 15 to get into the place where the Colossus is. And then from there, you actually need to like do the fight and everything, which would be insane. That would be so much grinding. That would be like genuinely an absurd amount of grinding. I don't think that's worth the free crit. Inner focus kind of sucks if you're not using like charged heavy melee or whatever. Anyway, there we go. Oh, the Slime Diva Baton. That's like probably the best thing we could have gotten. That's just a better scepter than what I have now. I won't be able to use it for a little bit. I think it's like level... Actually, I don't know what level it is. I'm not just going to randomly say a number. This game does have a wiki too, so if you're struggling to find something or don't understand a certain quest or whatever, despite it being in early access, it does already have a pretty comprehensive wiki. It is level 10. Okay, so we're pretty close. Probably be able to get it once I turn in these quests. Oh, hey, level 10. Perfect. Okay. So this right here will obviously give us the class tome, which will let us choose our class once we use the item itself. So I'm going to grab that. I'm also going to grab the mastery scrolls, which will, once we use them, give us the skill thing that we can level up. This will also reset all of our skill points, so we can use them in whatever we want now that we have all our skills unlocked. We'll be able to get more skill scrolls. And in fact, there's one specific skill scroll that is probably the best in the game, and I will be using that as soon as I can. But yeah, so the Scepter Mastery immediately lets us use the charge attack. Oh, it actually only decreases the cost of the charge attack, which will kind of not become super useful soon. Yeah, Restora is incredible, but we can't use it yet, so I am going to put 5 points into recovery until that will end up being useful. Flex Bolt will probably end up being our main damage type. Imbue is incredibly useful. Mana Flow is also incredibly useful, and Blink is also incredibly useful. So eventually, I'm going to put my skill points in Mana Flow, Blink, Restora, Flex Bolt, Imbue, Bell Mastery, Scepter Mastery, and that's it, actually. Divine, once I get that skill scroll, but that's not going to be for a while because I think it takes level 8 to use. For now, I'm going to put some points into Flex Bolt because that's still really good, even at this low level. And I don't really want either of these, actually. So, should I put this on? Yeah, definitely. Oh, and it's way cuter. So now that I have Staff Mastery, I have the Charge Attack, which um, it's really good, especially on, well, okay, certain weapons have really, really good charge attacks. Certain weapons just do not. This weapon's charge attack is very good, but it also uses a lot of mana. Um, I don't have a ton of mana, obviously, because, super early into the game, so I can't exactly rely on mana consuming stuff until a little bit later once we get our build to that point. But Flex Bolt is really good. It's kind of an area of effect. It can hit multiple enemies. It'll be more obvious once I start using it more. Oh wow, an Angelist here. That's really rare, actually, to get out of a random chest. I remember there being one of the spinny laser guys in this room, but I guess not. I don't know if that was changed or if I just straight up misremembered that. As you can see, Flex Bolt does pretty good damage. Getting good at parrying in this game isn't like that difficult, admittedly. It can be a little bit difficult when you first start to like really understand enemy tells and stuff, and like especially enemy ranges. Enemies have such a bigger range than I expected in my first playthrough, but I don't know, you get used to it pretty quick, I think, or at least I did. I don't know if my experience is like indicative of the general experience. Probably not, given how I play games like this, but either way, you get used to it. The combat in this game, I think, is not particularly difficult, but it's varied enough to stay interesting through the duration of the game. I mean, and beyond, for me at least. So Cryo Needle is pretty good. However, if we take the Cryo Cane and do the charge attack, it's basically exactly the same. It's not literally exactly the same, but it's pretty close. We also need a lot of Death Gel cores for, I want to say, the Golem Chestplate quest. I don't know. There is a quest that we need a ton of Death Gel cores for. So make sure to keep those. Same with the Hell Sludge cores. Yeah, I don't know. Just generally, I think it's a good idea to keep a hold of at least a few of each type of enemy drop, just in case you need it for a quest or whatever. Wait, what? Did I go backwards? So killer and magical enchanted enemies, not only do they do the damage type regardless of what kind of enemy they are. So like if they're magical, they'll obviously do magic damage. If they're killer, they'll do physical damage. They're also resistant to that kind of damage. So magical enemies are just incredibly annoying for mages. They're not like the worst, but and then eventually most of, at least for how I play Mystic, most of my damage is going to be coming from my skills anyway, which are also pure magic as far as I know. Anyway, yeah, here's the iron gear that you can get. There are little hidden things in certain rooms in these dungeons that you should definitely keep an eye out for. There aren't a ton. The other one that I remember off the top of my head is in like a room with a bridge, and then you can just jump over a gate that looks almost exactly the same as this one. And they'll sometimes have like a hidden key, so you can actually open a gate that you wouldn't otherwise be able to open, which will give you like special or extra loot or whatever. In this case, it just straight up gave us the extra loot without having us use a key. It sucks having so little mana. I can't play Mystic the way I usually do. Ow. I mean, granted, I only have so little mana because I'm, really early into the game, but regardless. Always the worst part about leveling new characters is you, like, fall into a playstyle, and then you have to basically completely change it to do low-level characters. Granted, you have to change your playstyle when going to a different class anyway, but I don't know. Alright, so this is the boss portal. It is completely optional. We can just leave right now if we wanted. However, obviously I want to fight the boss. Its moveset is very simple. It only has like 4 attacks, I think, off the top of my head that I can remember. It has a swipe. It has this, where it like shoots out the spinning projectile that can hit you multiple times. Um, you can actually parry it, which is really cool. And then it has this, which is really annoying. Oops. It's very, very difficult to dodge as well. And then it also has, or it can teleport away and then can like shoot a laser, which we might not see. And then about halfway through the fight, it'll disappear. And then we have to fight a bunch of little guys. And these guys will continually spawn for the rest of the fight, but not a ton spawn, so it's not a big deal. Yeah, there's the laser. Just kind of got to be careful to not stand directly where he's aiming, which admittedly isn't that difficult. If no enemies have spawned or whatever, the laser is actually a great opportunity to deal a bunch of damage because he just stands there while he's casting it. Otherwise, it is a great opportunity to get rid of additional ads that may have spawned that you haven't gotten rid of yet. The next boss, the boss of the next level of dungeon, is very similar, but much, much harder. And I'm probably going to save that for next time, but we do still have quite a bit to go through before I want to finish this video here. Now, this piece of equipment, I believe, is, yeah, fighter class. So we can't use either of those, even if we wanted to. We could still apply them, like, cosmetically if we go into Vanity here. We would need a thing called an illusion stone, and that would allow us to assign vanity slots per illusion stone. I think you can get them for, like, 300 gold per vanity stone. Or per illusion stone, rather. So now we get this quest, Purging the Undead, which is just killing a bunch of enemies that we've already fought quite a few of. So I'm going to be doing that off camera. It's not a ton. It's just like going through the level 6 to 12 dungeon a couple times. It's not that much, but it can take a little bit. So on our way to the keep, we have to go through here, and we're going to need a few Blightwood stuff. You can also use, you need Blightwood stuff to enchant the gear that you're going to be getting around this level. So if you do want to enchant stuff around now, then you're going to be wanting to pick up Blightwood sticks and logs. They're not insanely rare drops or anything, but it can be tedious to just kill Blightwoods over and over. So, hang on to them if you're going to want to do that. Obviously, this game is going to have at least a little bit of grinding to get materials to enchant or whatever, or to maybe find the best in slot stuff. Largely, I don't think this game is that grindy, all things considered. I think they actually increased the spawn rate of these guys in this area, because they used to take forever to respawn here. This is actually just a really good place to farm this stuff. Now, if we come in here, there is actually a waypoint here that we can teleport to from the world portal, or whatever it's called. I'm gonna actually get the Blightwood stuff I need, and then I'm gonna go somewhere else to get the Whizbore Scepter. You can actually get one of those in Tool Valley, because I specifically want the Whiz Wand for the keep, because it's really, really good. It's not like incredible or anything, but it's pretty good for this point in the game, and I used it for quite a while too. I think until I got to the final dungeon and got one of the best scepters in the game. Probably should have got the waypoint in Tool Valley earlier, but it's whatever. I kind of forgot that was even there. Because it wasn't there until very recently, until just before early access, I think. What even hit me? Ugh. There we go. Oh, it's level 13. Okay, I can't use that yet. That's fine. It's also worth mentioning that I haven't spent basically any gold yet. I could be spending gold, and it wouldn't be that much of an issue, but I want to save a good chunk of it for once I'm, like, enchanting and stuff, because it can take thousands of gold to do one enchantment on certain pieces of like late game gear. Though at that point, there are ways of farming money that are way faster. So I don't know. It might be worth actually like spending that money now on stuff to like level up or whatever, because you can buy experience tomes directly for money, which honestly might be a good use for right now. Gonna need a bunch of golem gems. I'm not sure about cores. No, you do definitely need cores because there's the making the golem chest piece quest. So definitely hold on to your golem stuff. There's also a quest where you need to kill 10 or 15 of each golem and then have a certain number of gems, which you're not necessarily going to get just by killing the golems that you need to kill. So definitely a good idea to hold on to golem stuff. So our goal, this is kind of a dungeon. That's what I meant by kind of two dungeons or whatever I said earlier. Because this is kind of a dungeon. We need to get to the end of two separate paths here in order to complete the Keep Within quest. But it's not like a proper dungeon, right? Because if we die here, we go back to the Sanctum. It's not like we have a revive point here. It doesn't ever randomize or anything. The only thing that's random about this is the individual enemies that'll spawn in these combat encounters. And even then, there are only a few that can even spawn in here, right? So and that lever opens escape so that we can get to the first sigil, which is only 3 combat encounters, which is much less than the other one. Now, actually, you could just die right now, or, you know, recall and then come back and then go straight to the East Sigil and not even do this combat encounter. But then you'd have to go through the first one again anyway, so it's not that big of a change. Also, the pools that the mouths like spit out are poison, so if you touch them, you'll get poisoned and take damage over time. Their poison isn't that strong, but there's an enemy later on called a Ma, which is like a stronger version of the mouths, and their poison does a lot of damage. We also get a lot more class-focused gear at this point in the game, so that halo I just picked up, I can't even use it right now. Oh, I can put this on though. Should probably do that. Anyway, yeah, so this halo is specific to the bandit class, but there is a halo that is specific to the mystic class that we'll be able to get. It's not guaranteed we'll get it, obviously, but you know, we're going to be coming here a lot for a specific quest later anyway. It's likely that you'll get it, and like even if you don't get it during that quest, it's not super rare, so grinding for it shouldn't take too long. Also, fun fact, you can entirely skip this combat encounter very, very easily, but I'm not going to. I want the experience and the loot and everything. Oops. Yeah, so this is the kind of instance where you'd want an Angelist here. Because, like, in dungeons, you know, you respawn basically immediately anyway. You might need to, like, walk through the dungeon a little bit, but they're small enough that that doesn't really matter. But in an area like this, where there is no revive thing, you have to go through all the combat encounters again, rather than, you know, in a dungeon where all the combat encounters you've already cleared, you won't have to go through because it doesn't reload the area when you die. I really wish you could change your slots out here. Like, not necessarily learn new spells, but at least change what slots your spells are in. But that's not a big deal. Hey, there's a Rude Blade. Nice. I haven't gotten any Bitter Tooths yet, really? That's annoying. The Death Gel cores are definitely the most annoying thing to get for that quest, though, for sure. Because there's no dungeon layout where they'll show up, like, early on in the dungeon. Which is just, I don't know, kind of annoying. Not that bad, but a bit frustrating. Imbue also lasts a very long time. It lasts double the time that Rage does, which is the fighter, like, increases physical damage ability as opposed to the magic damage. Luckily, mouths are very common in the combat encounter at the very beginning of the keep. So once you're doing the quest where you need to kill a bunch of golems, you can just go into that specific combat encounter over and over, and you're likely to get a bunch of mouths to spawn. And combat encounters actually end up respawning after a little bit. So, like, we're clearing these out, right? And they're not immediately going again. However, oh, also a soul pearl. Those are really good. They let you revive your companions in co-op, but they also allow you to upgrade and enchant. Or sorry, they allow you to enchant specific things. Anyway, yeah, the mouth bitter tooths aren't really an issue with how the quests are laid out. You're likely to get a bunch of bitter tooths, but It can be annoying to not get them for a while because mouths can be annoying to fight. Unfortunately, we do actually need to complete the keep with. Also, parried the mini golem. We need to complete the keep within quest before we can do the quest where we need to kill the golems, which is a little annoying, but it does make sense. Um, but we can't do both at the same time. Like, I guess if it's your first time playing the game, you're not even gonna know that that quest exists in the first place, so it's like not gonna affect your playthrough. But you know, after playing through this game, or what's in this game, I guess the beginning of the perspective final game so many times, it's a little bit frustrating since I know what's gonna come up. But I mean, again, I enjoy this combat enough that it's really not an issue. Also, golems are like extremely easy to parry. So alone, they're one of the least dangerous enemies. I would say same thing goes for the Geists. The Geists are super non-threatening when they're alone, but when there's a bunch of them, they can be extremely dangerous if you're not like already good at parrying. And even if you are, you know, you still have to pay attention to so much and potentially so many enemies that it can still be extremely difficult to like not take damage while trying to parry them or whatever. There we go. There's a quest to take out the golems. Consume Madness, I believe, is a level 12 to 16 dungeon. Yeah, which I will do next video, I think. Everything else I want to do for this video is... Actually, that's kind of it. The rest is just grinding, because I want to do the level 12 to 16 dungeon in the next video. I also want to do the Grove in the next video. There is another thing for the Golem chest plate. Oh, quest, sorry. Brain not working. Yeah, the Golem chest plate, which we'll be working towards as we're killing golems anyway. So yeah, I think that about does it for this video. I'm going to do the rest of these off camera since it's just grinding for stuff that I've already gone through how to get. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I love you all. And I especially want to thank Frankie, Peyton Brown, Jackie, The Dire Gay, Ethan Strotter, Eric J.O., Krista, Ratini, Howling Nocturne, Magnetar Technologies, Racuna, White Flame, Manarok, and Ryan Rickard. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I don't know how to end this.